Gary Soto was born on April 12, 1952, in Fresno, California. His parents and grandparents were both fruit laborers. When Gary was only 5, his father died in an accident while working at the Sun-Maid Raisin Company. Since his family earned low wages, he lived and grew up in a poor barrio or Mexican-American neighborhood. His sister and him both had to work once they were old enough in order to support their family. His challenging upbringing and loss of his father influenced him significantly in the creation of many of his books and poems. According to notablebiographies.com, he has written well over 30 books and 20 poems thus far. When he was 19 years old, he discovered the works of Edward Field, who wrote about real things such as pollution. Field's words resonated with him and inspired him to want to write too. Soto's book, The Tale of Sunlight, was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize in 1978, and he was one of the first Mexican Americans to ever be nominated for this award. Clearly, there were not a lot of books written by Chicanos with Chicano characters being represented, and thus Soto set forth to change that and provide representation. After earning a master's degree in creative writing from the University of California, he began teaching Chicano studies at the University of California at Berkeley up until 1993. Now, after being published in a number of poetry magazines, he is currently the ambassador for the United Farm Workers of America, or UFWA. He makes visits to schools and discusses the importance of improving working conditions and wages for farmers. He is a Young People's Ambassador for California Rural Legal Assistance, or the CRLA. There is even a Gary Soto Literary Museum, which is located in Fresno City College. Soto once said, "I think like a poet and behave like a poet." This is evident in all of his texts. Here, I have a selection of 5 books written by this author. So, in Worlds Apart, Fernie and Me, there is an astounding amount of places that the main characters imagine traveling to. Peru, Paraguay, Mongolia, India, Russia, and Paris are just some of these countries. A different unit could be created for each and every one of these places after reading the short passages aloud with students. For one activity, students could research and write a report on Australian art after reading the Australian Backwards chapter. A culminating activity for this lesson could involve having students make their own sculptures that are inspired by Aboriginal Australian works. Sample question prompts such as, have you ever gone to an exhibition? Does art imitate life? And, in your opinion, is design an important part of culture? Would help in initiating and maintaining discussions. The website for an Aboriginal memorial, npa.gov.au, as well as the klug/ruhe.org site of an art collection of the University of Virginia, are some websites that can also be explored. Students may be assessed on whether they were creative, organized, and attentive to detail after participating in a whole class critique. Another chapter in this book, titled Mexican Food in Taiwan, really illustrates Soto's typical use of diction as well as humor. In Taiwan, Fernie and me rode an elevator up the tallest building in Asia. We stepped outside. All the wind in the world was up there. I laughed. The wind parted Fernie's hair 100 different ways and made my blue chewing gum fly out of my mouth. Bright me, I said. Let's get some Mexican food for lunch. When Fernie started to say, but dude, we're in Taiwan, his blue chewing gum flew from his mouth. This kind of language is relatable to students and gives the characters a more realistic voice. They do not seem outlandish, but instead come across as an average everyday kid. The excerpt on the back of Fearless Fernie also illustrates Soto's rather matter-of-fact sense of humor. Fernie put on muscle, big plates on his chest, ropes in his arms, trout shimmering under the skin of his brown shoulders. His waist was as thin as an ant's, and me? Heck, I sat on the lawn eating potato chips. There are poems written about making art in this book as well. However, another activity that could be centered around the emotional poem, At the River Called Sadness, and I'll show that. In doing so, emotions such as anger, loneliness, and fear could be written down on pieces of paper, placed into a bowl or a large hat, and then students can pick these out at random to illustrate whichever emotion they chose. The poem Close Your Eyes and Make a Wish makes use of literary devices such as the metaphor, the candles, each a smoky lighthouse, and the simile with the sentence, chest muscles big as hubcaps. The poem Medicine includes repetition. The storybook, Hey 13, would be an excellent book to keep in a classroom library as it features 13 personal coming-of-age stories that teens may choose to read for pleasure. My Little Car and Lucky Louie are both intended for younger children in elementary grades. One possible activity for My Little Car would be to have students create their own cars out of recycled cardboard boxes so they can act like the main character Teresa and engage in the reading all the while role-playing. On almost every page of this book, there's code switching. So, right away, Teresa took it outside. Everyone admired her car. Bikes parted when she pedaled down the sidewalk. When a sharp-looking Ranfla rolled by on the street, her neighbor Jose Luis honked at her. "I like your ride, muchacha," his voice cooed. "I like your bon tambien," Teresa yelled in return. These books both incorporate elements of the Spanish language, which might be a native language to some ELs. The images throughout them are all beautifully illustrated, as they are brightly colored and inviting to look at. Clearly, Soto's writing spans across a wide spectrum of reading levels, from beginner level, which are these two books, to intermediate, which would be Fearless Fernie, and then to more advanced, which would be Hate 13. Aside from these, some of his books, such as Too Many Tamales, or Que Monton de Tamales, and Chato y su Cocina, Chato's Kitchen, are available in printed form in Spanish. There are also YouTube videos, such as one from Scholastic, which read these books aloud in Spanish. Even though Soto wrote about his own life experiences and many of his characters represent people of Mexican heritage specifically, he believes that he has written about the lives of most kids who grow up in America. As stated by the poetryfoundation.org, every story of Gary's explores universal themes like alienation, family life, friendship, and choices, all of which are issues that young kids and teens everywhere will surely encounter in their lives. These are just some of the ways in which his stories are relatable to students of any background and ethnicity. Overall, Gary Soto is a wonderful multicultural author because he is able to remember what it felt like to be a kid. His laid-back writing style pays attention to visual details and paints images in the reader's mind through his use of concise words. Thank you.